and the fact that this brother hasn't been picked in the first 3 rounds. That is a crime. It is a disgrace.
Stephen A. Smith just went off on Shedeur Sanders, and he didn't hold back for a second. Shedeur's rookie run in the league hasn't been smooth at all, and now word is he's signing a deal outside the NFL. Stephen A. called it a crime and a disgrace. But that's not even the wild part. He also dropped some heavy revelations about what's really been going on behind the scenes.
It's like understood. We don't want him because we don't like his daddy. Or we don't like his dad.
The confrontation went down live on Instagram, and fans couldn't believe what they were seeing. Stephen A. Smith, known for his fiery takes, directly called out Shedeur Sanders, the son of Hall of Famer Deion "Primetime" Sanders, right there in front of millions. For Stephen A., who spent years tearing through excuses from athletes and coaches, Shedeur signing a deal beyond the NFL system was like a slap in the face. It sent shockwaves across the sports world. Shedeur came into the league carrying massive expectations. Scouts once saw him as a first-round lock, maybe even the future face of a franchise.
That if he didn't like the situation his son was in, he was going to pull him up out of there. Stuff like that. On the NFL level, can't do that.
But instead of that dream NFL rise, he slid down the draft board, leaving fans stunned and critics circling like sharks. Stephen A. once said something that hit way deeper than anyone realized. Those words weren't just commentary, they were a warning. Because what came next looked less like football business and more like what Stephen A. called straight-up collusion between NFL owners, all to keep Shedeur from shining just because of his father, Deion Sanders. When Shedeur made that bold move to sign a contract outside the NFL system, it was like lighting a match in a room full of gasoline. Critics called it reckless. Insiders whispered, career suicide. But from Shedeur's point of view, it was about taking back control. He was done letting front offices decide his worth, especially ones that clearly didn't want him on their terms. Stephen A. wasn't going to stay quiet, not a chance. When he went live with Shedeur, things got heated. You had a media legend who never bites his tongue facing off with a young quarterback tired of being treated like a pawn. The tension was electric. At one point, Stephen A. looked straight into the camera and said, "You understand how powerful that statement is."
Usually injuries or off-the-field issues force you to plummet. None of which applies to Shedeur Sanders.
Boom! That line hit like a punch. Because this wasn't just about Shedeur, it was about his bloodline. Deion Sanders spent years challenging the system, and now his son's paying the price. This goes way beyond football. It's about power, control, and whether a young black quarterback with real talent and confidence can finally break free from the system built to hold him down. That's exactly why Stephen A. went at Shedeur so hard on IG Live. Because in his eyes, Shedeur wasn't just making a career move, he was straight up challenging the entire NFL system. Stephen A., who's never been scared to call out owners for their double standards, turned that same fire on Shedeur this time. And it shocked everyone. It felt like he was saying, if you're gonna fight the machine, you better be ready for the smoke. And let's be real, this is the same league that blackballed Colin Kaepernick just for kneeling during the anthem. The same one Stephen A. once exposed for handing every owner a $246 million check while still blaming Kaepernick for their losses.
I think where they made a huge mistake is that everyone is going to think collusion.
Right.
Because you can't say there's 5 quarterbacks in the draft that were better than Shedeur Sanders.
His message hit hard. The NFL doesn't forgive, and it definitely doesn't forget. But Shedeur, he wasn't flinching. He fired back, saying he wasn't about to let his future be controlled by men who never truly believed in him. You could hear the pain and frustration in his voice, the same fire his father Deion has carried for years. Meanwhile, the comments section went wild. Some were calling Stephen A. a hypocrite. Others swore Shedeur was ending his own career. But a few bold voices said what everyone was scared to admit, that maybe this is what the NFL's been terrified of all along. Because if Shedeur Sanders wins outside their system, it proves their so-called control over football's future might not be as untouchable as they want everyone to think. That IG Live wasn't just a heated convo, it was a full-on generational clash. On one side, you've got the old guard that plays by billionaire rules. On the other, a new wave of athletes ready to risk everything for independence. This wasn't just sports talk, it was rebellion caught on camera. At first, fans thought it'd be a simple chat. Stephen A. Smith is live with Shedeur Sanders. No big deal, right? But within seconds, people realized they were witnessing a career-defining moment unfold live. The fallout hit instantly. It went viral and messy in record time. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all flooded with reposts, hot takes, and reaction clips. Hashtags like hashtag Shedeur Sanders, hashtag Stephen A, and hashtag FlexB took over overnight. But what made it explosive wasn't just the argument. It was the timing. Shedeur had just signed a multi-million-dollar deal outside the NFL structure, tied to endorsements, media projects, and ventures that went way beyond football. No fifth-round rookie had ever pulled that off, and it sent chills through NFL ownership, because suddenly everyone had to ask, what happens if Shedeur Sanders doesn't need the NFL to win? What if other players start following that blueprint?
And then we have to take into reality what we saw. Shedeur Sanders looked very, very bad. Very bad.
Just like that, the league's grip on young talent started to crack. Fans expected Stephen A. to dominate. He's the pro, the voice of ESPN, but Shedeur came in calm, sharp, and unshaken. He reminded everyone that he's been under pressure his whole life, from taking over Jackson State to turning Colorado into a phenomenon with his dad at the helm. And when Stephen A. accused him of running from the system, Shedeur clapped back hard. If the NFL didn't want me, why should I let them control me? They had their chance. I'm not begging for a seat at their table. I'm building my own. Boom! The comment section erupted. Supporters flooded the chat with fire emojis and comments like, "Talk your talk," while critics fired back with warnings like, "You'll regret this. Nobody beats the NFL." The internet exploded overnight. By morning, every sports outlet had picked up the story. Skip Bayless called it the boldest move we've ever seen from a rookie quarterback, while Shannon Sharpe compared it to what Colin Kaepernick went through when his activism clashed with NFL ownership. ESPN ran that IG live clip almost every hour, but the real chill came from what insiders were saying. Anonymous NFL execs told reporters that Shedeur had burned bridges and would never play meaningful snaps again. It was deja vu, just like the draft all over again. Remember, Shedeur wasn't just passed over, he was humiliated, falling deep into the later rounds, despite analysts like Mel Kiper Jr. calling him a top 20 prospect. Stephen A. had warned people back then. It wasn't about talent, it was about politics. And now, by publicly confronting Shedeur, he dragged the NFL's dirty secrets right into the light. But this story goes deeper. It's not just about Shedeur. It's about his father, Deion Sanders. Primetime has always been larger than life. Hall of Famer, Super Bowl legend, media personality, and now the coach who turned Colorado into a viral sensation. And that spotlight, the owners hate it. They can't control it. On IG Live, Stephen A. finally said what execs have been whispering behind closed doors, that Shedeur is being punished because of who his father is. Let that sink in. The NFL, a league that swears it's built on merit, accused of blackballing a young quarterback not for his skill but for his last name. That's way bigger than football. That's systemic. That kind of accusation makes fans question everything. The NFL has bent over backward to give second, third, even fourth chances to players with DUIs, assault charges, and locker room chaos. But Shedeur Sanders? A clean record, no legal issues, no attitude problems, and straight-up production on the field. He's the one getting treated like a problem? Make it make sense. All because his father had the nerve to say he wanted a little control over his son's career path. That's pure hypocrisy. Teams will look past all kinds of drama, but a father protecting his son? Suddenly, that's too much trouble? Please.
But also, you mentioned the fact that why would they sabotage an NFL Legends player? I think that's part of it too.
As the IG live clip spread across the internet, fans picked sides fast. Team Shedeur said he was doing what legends do, breaking free from a system built to control talent, carving his own lane just like the rebels in music and business who refused to sell out. Meanwhile, Team Stephen A. argued he was tossing away history, trading the prestige of the NFL for quick cash and clout. The debate was non-stop, But the most telling reaction, the one that never came. The NFL stayed dead silent. No press release, no spin, no response, nothing. That silence screamed louder than any statement could. It was like they knew speaking up would only make things worse, because acknowledging Shedeur's contract or Stephen A's rant would validate the whole mess. But silence doesn't stop perception, and the growing perception was brutal. The NFL was scared. By the end of the week, Shedeur Sanders had flipped the script from an overlooked rookie to one of the most talked about names in all of sports. He'd done what almost no one ever pulls off, forced the most powerful league in America into the shadows of a conversation it couldn't control. Stephen A thought he was holding Shedeur accountable, but what he really did was expose every crack in the NFL's shiny armor. The hate, the politics, the fear of independence, it all came spilling out. And if you thought that IG Live Showdown was the end, oh no, what came next was even darker. The systematic hate campaign that followed Shedeur Sanders everywhere he went. When you really look at why so many people come for Shedeur Sanders, it goes way deeper than football. There's a pattern, and it's ugly. Let's break down why Shedeur catches more hate than almost any other young quarterback in recent memory. First up, the silver spoon narrative. Critics love to claim Shedeur had everything handed to him, that he never had to grind for his spot. They point straight to his father, Deion Sanders, saying every step, from Jackson State to Colorado, was set up by prime time. But here's the double standard. NFL teams love football families. The Mannings, praised for their legacy. Patrick Mahomes, his dad was a pro athlete. The Bossas, straight up celebrated for their pedigree. So why is Shedeur the one being dragged as a Nepo baby? Because his last name is Sanders, and Deion's never played by their quiet, obedient rules. That's the real issue. Then came the draft day humiliation. The whole country watched it unfold. Shedeur, once projected as a first-round pick, even called a top 20 talent, slid all the way to the later rounds. That wasn't just a fall, that was a free fall. And casual fans who didn't understand the politics assumed one thing. Guess he wasn't that good. It was a setup. From the jump, Shedeur's been fighting uphill, and when he had one rough preseason, 3 completions, 5 sacks, just 14 yards, the haters pounced instantly.
Here's the sad part about what we saw this weekend. That may be the only time we see Shedeur Sanders on the NFL field this year. That will be our lasting memory.
See? We told you so, they screamed all over social media. But here's the truth. People hate seeing athletes win before they're supposed to. Shedeur's new contract outside the NFL, reportedly worth more than what some rookies make in total. That's power, that's independence. But to the league loyalists, it looked like arrogance, a slap in the face to tradition. They couldn't stand that a 5th-round pick had the nerve to secure real money and walk away from their system. So the hate? It's not really about football, it's about control, ego, and the fact that Shedeur Sanders refuses to play by their script. And that's what scares them most. Here's the real truth. Shedeur's just playing the same game the owners have been playing for decades. They use players for profit every single day, but now he's flipping the script, making sure he gets the benefit this time. That's why the hate burns so hot. People don't actually hate him. They hate that he outsmarted the system and refused to play their role. Then there's the so-called arrogance tag, classic NFL playbook. Before the draft, anonymous scouts were whispering that Shedeur was too confident, too brash, and hard to coach. But here's the crazy part. Those same executives praise white quarterbacks for the exact same thing. When Joe Burrow shows swagger, it's leadership. When Shedeur does it, it's arrogance. The double standard couldn't be louder. And let's be real, every drop of hate Shedeur gets is magnified by his father's shadow. Deion Sanders isn't just a dad, he's prime time. A Hall of Famer, cultural icon, and one of the boldest voices in sports history. He's never backed down from calling out hypocrisy, whether it's the NFL, NCAA, or the media itself. But the truth is, owners don't like being challenged. They don't like the idea of a father demanding real control over his son's path, so Shedeur ends up paying the price for Deion's fearlessness. The saddest part? A lot of fans want Shedeur to fail. Why? Because if he succeeds, it proves the system isn't untouchable, that players can win without bowing to the league. But if he fails, it lets the haters feel right again, like, see, you can't beat the machine. That's what they're clinging to. Even Stephen A hinted at it on First Take. This idea that fans are just waiting for proof he's overrated. And until Shedeur shuts them up with undeniable success, they'll keep twisting every misstep into fuel for the hate. So why does Shedeur get all this hate? Simple. It's not one thing. It's everything. He's Deion's son. He breaks the rules. He got paid early. He walks with confidence. And he's challenging the NFL's power. That combo makes him a lightning rod for controversy. While most young QBs are allowed to grow quietly, Shedeur Sanders is being judged in real time, under a microscope, by millions who can't wait to see him stumble. Here's the twist. Hate isn't always a curse. Sometimes it's straight up fuel. If Shedeur can flip that hate into motivation, he might just shock everyone rooting against him. Because history always proves one thing. The louder the hate, the sweeter the victory when you prove them wrong. And if there's one person who knows how to thrive in controversy, it's Stephen A. Smith. That wild IG Live with Shedeur wasn't random, it was classic Stephen A. Another bold chapter in a career built on confrontation, accountability, and calling people out when the rest of the sports world stays quiet. He's been doing this for decades, clashing with athletes, owners, and even entire franchises. Always fearless, always headline-worthy. Take Tom Brady, for example. The greatest of all time, right? Well, not if you ask Stephen A. He's never bought into the Brady worship. He's argued for years that Brady's success had just as much to do with the Patriots' stacked defense and Bill Belichick's genius as it did with Brady's arm. In his own words, Tom Brady's not the greatest quarterback of all time. He's been blessed with the circumstances he's played in. That's vintage Stephen A. Blunt, controversial, and unapologetic. And he didn't stop there. Stephen A. even mocked Brady's TB12 lifestyle, saying he's not invincible. He's not a superhero. He's long questioned the science behind Brady's strict diet and wellness brand, calling it overhyped. His take? Brady's still elite because of raw skill and work ethic, not because of some avocado ice cream and recovery pajamas. Then there's Aaron Rodgers, another legend Stephen A. refuses to glorify. Even with MVP trophies and a Super Bowl ring, Stephen A. has repeatedly called out Rodgers' leadership and clutch performance. He once said, "Aaron Rodgers isn't the leader Tom Brady is. He's not the guy who can take over a game like Brady can." That comment sparked chaos online. Fans went crazy. But that's Stephen A. in a nutshell. Part truth teller, part showman. Whether you agree or not, he keeps the sports world buzzing. And that's exactly why his clash with Shedeur hit so hard. Because when Stephen A. steps into a story, it's never just about football anymore. It's about shaking up the entire game. Stephen A. Smith has never been shy about calling players out, and Odell Beckham Jr. was no exception. Back in 2019, he told ESPN straight up, Odell's got all the talent in the world, but he's gotta prove he's a worker. That's Stephen A.'s thing. Tough love with a loud mic. He's not buying the hype unless you've got the grind to back it up. Sure, OBJ's had flashes of brilliance, but Stephen A. insists he's missing the consistency to reach his full potential. And yeah, OBJ's flashy lifestyle, the relationships, the headlines, the drama, hasn't exactly helped him either. His talent's never been in question, but his focus? Stephen A. keeps pushing that button every time. Then there's Colin Kaepernick, a whole different level of controversy. Stephen A.'s stance on the protest divided fans everywhere. Some agreed with him about respecting the anthem, others said he completely missed the point of Kaepernick's message about social justice. Either way, his words sparked some of the most heated debates the NFL has ever seen. And Stephen A. didn't stop there. Cam Newton, Antonio Brown, Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, they've all been targets of that trademark scrutiny. He once said Cam had to prove himself as a leader, that AB was a guy with talent but way too much drama, and that Josh Allen still needs to show real consistency. Even Dak caught strays when Stephen A. questioned if he was worth the money during his contract battle. Love him or hate him, Stephen A. stays stirring the pot. That's his brand. He doesn't sugarcoat, doesn't protect feelings, and never pulls a punch. Whether it's Tom Brady's GOAT status, Aaron Rodgers' leadership, or OBJ's work ethic, he's gonna speak his mind loud and clear. So when Shedeur Sanders went against the system and signed that outside deal, it was inevitable Stephen A. would jump in, not out of hate, but because that's who he is, the guy who confronts what others avoid. He saw Shedeur's move as risky, even rebellious, and he wasn't about to let it slide quietly. Because here's the thing, this story isn't just about football, it's about power. If Shedeur succeeds outside the NFL, he won't just silence critics. He'll shatter the league's control over young talent forever. And that's why this wasn't just IG Live drama. It was history in the making. So what do you think? Will Shedeur crack under the pressure or become the one who finally breaks the NFL's iron grip? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like, share, and subscribe. And I'll catch you in the next one.